Welcome everyone to the Road to Wisdom podcast. We are chatting today with Jaylee Robinett, and this is a pretty profound story and it's a great one to share. And I think, do we need a little trigger warning or are we good?
I think we're good.
I think we're good.
I think our audience is solid with the fact that we bring on some pretty hardcore stories.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a cancer survival story, and I think it's a really important one to share because there are options out there and there are people walking those paths and showing us how it's done. So welcome, Jaylee.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for having me. This is my first time being on a podcast, so it's really, really cool. Yeah, and it's cool that you guys are Australian too, because I have experience, living over in Australia, and it's just really cool to share the story further. So it's awesome. I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about like the background. Before I was diagnosed, because I was diagnosed in 2023. My mom was diagnosed in 2014. And that was kind of my first introduction to the world of cancer because I had never had a family member or close friend ever be diagnosed before. So when my mom was diagnosed, me and her were really close, I was kind of thrown into this world of cancer and what it all looks like and what treatment looks like. And I was just really discouraged. It was a really terrible experience, actually, my mom's whole battle. It was just straight away from the beginning, lots of doom and gloom, lots of promises that, aren't fulfilled. Like they told her she had kidney cancer and they told her it was contained in her kidney. And if she had a major surgery and just took her kidney out, she would be cancer free and she'd be fine. So she did that because you're conditioned to do what doctors tell you to do. You're supposed to be able to trust doctors. So she did that. Her kidney was taken out and they told her, you're all good, you're cancer free. And then she went back to living her normal life. She didn't change anything or do anything because she thought, okay, I'm cancer free. And then 6 months later, it was spread to her lungs and then it went to her brain and just everything like that. And so I had a bad experience with Western medicine previously. And then my mom passed away in 2017. She fought really bravely. She was amazing. She was so positive the whole way through, but ultimately cancer did, take her life. And so years later, 7 years later, when I was diagnosed, I had already kind of had that experience. So anyways, what had happened was I was living in Australia at the time with my now husband, who's Australian. And I had flown home to America for my dad's birthday and I stayed for about a month. And when I flew back to Australia, I went to sleep that night of the flight, woke up the next morning in like excruciating pain, like the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. I was freaking out and I felt something right here. So I ran to the bathroom and I lifted up my shirt and there was this like, it looked like a little person trying to like push out of my breast. Like it was so wild and it was all blue and purple and crazy. And I was like, what the heck? There was nothing there yesterday. I took a shower after the airplane. It was completely fine. So I'm like on the verge of like passing out, the pain so bad. And so my then fiance took me to the emergency room and they told me it's not because my first thought, it's cancer because my mom had cancer. And so that's always kind of been a fear in the back of my head. Like, sorry.
That's so funny because when you were describing your symptoms just then, the first thing that came to my head was mastitis. I don't know if you've ever experienced mastitis before, but
no, I don't have children.
Yeah, so the pain is like shocking, and black and blue. I mean, I've only had it really badly once, but it's another world of Anyway,
who knew that breasts could give you so much pain? You know what I mean? It's such like an outer part of the body. You think like it wouldn't be. No, it was terrible. And so I'm at the emergency room, and I don't even care at this point. I'm lifting my shirt up. Look, I'm telling to the people. I'm like, help me! Like somebody help me! Like this is the worst pain I've ever felt. And so they put me back into a bed, and they give me I think they gave me some sort of painkiller. Did not touch the pain. I was like, someone needs to knock me out. Like, this is such bad pain. So then they ended up having to shoot me up with fentanyl, like literally straight into the bloodstream to even be able to like touch the lump. Whoa. Because I was holding my shirt off like this because anything touching it was like excruciating. And so they shot me up with fentanyl, and they're touching around, and they're like, this is not cancer. The emergency doctor was like, this is not cancer. Next person that came in, don't worry, this is not cancer. Cancer doesn't behave this way. Cancer doesn't spring up overnight. Cancer doesn't give you excruciating pain. And so I was like, okay, cool, it's not cancer. They're like, it's an infection from the plane, or it's a blood clot. So they tried to get the fluid out, and they hit a hard mass. And so then they were like, okay, let's do a core needle biopsy. So I was transferred to the bigger hospital, and they did a core needle. And even the guy who did the core needle was like, this isn't cancer. Anyway, a couple days later, they call me and say, hey, we need to speak to you in person. And, you're like, oh no.
It's the worst. Like, that's bad.
Yeah. And so I still kind of didn't think it was that bad because, I don't know, they'd already said so many times, oh no, don't worry. And then when I got to my appointment, my name was called. Like, there was a guy like in like a suit, like obvious, like a super old like there was like 4 people standing by the door. And I was like, okay, like what is going on? Like, this must be really bad. So I got into the room, and the head oncologist guy was like, I'm so sorry. We were wrong. It is cancerous. And at this point, time stops, because I had such a horrible experience with my mom, watching her suffer like insanely for 3 years. And I'm all I was thinking was like, I cannot call my family and tell them that they have to go through that whole thing again. Like, yeah. And I was shaking like uncontrollably. And so I'm told I have cancer, and that they don't know what kind of cancer it is, that it's something really terrible. They don't know exactly what kind, but from how irregular and how fast the cells are proliferating, they can tell it's really, really not good. Because there's certain things that they look for, like spindle cells and atypical, there's a whole bunch of like different things they look at to see how aggressive it is. And they basically told me this is one of the worst, like, that we've seen here at this hospital. And so it was like, okay, I'm trying to take this information in. And in the same breath, this guy just starts talking about, we're going to cut your breast off. We're going to cut your chest off. We're going to take part of your back off. You were going to freeze your eggs. And I'm just like, I can't hear this right now. Like, I'm just trying to absorb the fact that I have this big, long battle in front of me. I don't want to hear about all that. So,
Jaylee, just for some quick context, how old are you?
Yeah. I'm 28 right now. I was 26 when I was diagnosed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, 26. And so, after that, when I went home that day, I was just like, they were calling me like that day, trying to schedule a PET scan, trying to schedule the surgery. And I was just like, me and my husband, his name's Isaac, by the way. I'm just going to call him Isaac from now on. Me and Isaac, we just sort of like had a moment of like, all right, what is this journey going to look like? How are we going to tackle this? We wanted to start straight away. And we're believers in God, like we're Christians. And so we had like a time of prayer as well. And I just felt like so strongly that I needed to heal myself naturally, because I feel like in the moment when the doctor was telling me I had cancer, I had all these things pop into my head, like, oh my gosh, like I've not taken good care of myself. Like I have not been eating right. And I've been really bad to myself. I've been running out of the house, just not eating all day, having black coffee, not stressing myself out, working till 1 a.m. I know that I've put myself in a perfect position for cancer to thrive and grow. So I was like, you know what? I think that I want to go another road. And that was a really scary decision and a really hard decision, because I had the doctors in Australia who are the hospital that I was at least, they're They have absolutely no holistic, and they're very, very
And
like
they don't tolerate it, do they? They're just like, if
no.
you come at them with any kind of holistic approach, or even just like, I'm going to take some vitamin C, they're like, oh, okay, so
You're one of those.
you don't
people.
care. Like they just like write you off straight away.
Exactly. And I had that experience a lot. So I was obviously, they needed to do further scans. They wanted to see if it had spread, and they wanted to do the PET scan straight away. And when you look into the PET scan, it's radiated glucose that they put into your system, that it goes around for like 45 minutes. And the way that they can see where the cancer is, how it like lights up on the scan, is because the cancer is glucose hungry. So it gets to that glucose first, and then they can see it through the radioactive waves or whatever. And so I like looked into that, what the scan that they wanted to do. And I was like, it just didn't make any sense to me. I was like, wait, you want to do a scan to see where I have cancer by feeding the cancer? Like, you want to put the glucose? I was like, I'm not doing that. Like,
with glucose and radiation, which are both like carcinogenics. So.
Yeah, I'm like, the two things I'm trying to stay away from the most. Like, you want to put it in me intravenously. They were trying to say it's the same exact, like the radiation is the same exact thing about from flying from Australia to the USA. And I'm like, it's not the same as it getting injected into your bloodstream. Like, I'm sorry, it's not the same. So
Hey guys, we're jumping on today to share with you some of our favorite mushroom products from Superfeast.
I've been doing some fertility awareness method one-on-one trainings and just talking about some other symptoms that I've been having with this postpartum. And one of them happens to be like mamahood ADHD. I don't know if everybody knows, but it's actually a thing. And so one of the things I'm going to be putting into my routine in the mornings is just a little bit of lion's mane to kind of ground me down and bring me back into my body, close a couple of tabs, and just help with that brain fog, which we all know too well in motherhood.
Yes, well, this postpartum, I have definitely been supporting myself with Jing, which is a kidney tonic, and has replaced coffee for me, believe it or not. It is fantastic, it's delicious, and it's a really nice little ritual still in the morning to have a nice warm drink. If any of you guys are out there and wanting to try these products, jump onto Superfeast. We will put a link in our show notes and use the code Road to Wisdom 10 to enjoy 10% off.
Amazing.
That's kind of where the fight started to begin. They did not like that. They did not like that I asked for a full body MRI instead that uses, just water and magnetism. And so, they were really awful to me. They kept pushing for the PET scan. They kept pushing for the surgery. And they told me if I didn't do the surgery, I wouldn't make it, or I wouldn't be able to see my family back home. Like, they were saying all these terrible things to me all the time about how I don't have time. That was their whole thing. You're running out of time. You're running out of time. If you don't act soon, if you don't cut your breast and your chest wall and all that off, and if you don't start this gnarly chemo, and if you don't do this, and this, you're going to run out of time.
Can I ask you, Jaylee, how were you, like, not mentally, but physically in your body, apart from the pain in your breast and obviously the lump, like, how was the rest of your well-being? Like, how's the rest of your body? Did you feel strong, or were you like fatigued, or
I was fatigued. I was definitely fatigued. I think, though, it's kind of hard for me to tell, because when I first found out that I had, like, I don't think I felt sick or fatigued before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trying to think back, like, I don't think I had feelings of like, oh, I feel sick, or I feel extra tired all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was just used to being chronically dehydrated, and used to just having these glucose spikes. Like, I was just used to it. I didn't know anything was wrong. And so it's kind of hard for me to like say when I started to feel sick. And then post diagnosis, I was taking so many supplements and doing so many things that I think that also kind of had a little bit to do with my like feeling really tired and feeling a little bit sick for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But and then so I started to look into natural medicine, and basically just one thing led to another. It was like this perfect little pathway to healing because, and I'm like I said before, like I'm a believer in God, but I'm also a believer in like your own intuition and like what you know is best for your body. And if you can really sit there and think about it, and you will really know what's best for you more than doctors, more than anyone. And so the first thing that I started was high dose intravenous vitamin C, which pretty well acts like a natural chemotherapeutic because it the cancer cells can't withstand it, but your regular cells can and actually get boosts, of health from it. And so I started on that right away. And a doctor that didn't get the jab and so actually wasn't considered a doctor anymore from Australia. He was like practicing underground, so I'm not going to say his name. A doctor in Noosa, he was the one who was doing it for me. So I was going to his practice twice a week, getting high dose intravenous vitamin C. And then he checked the rest of my body out and he saw that I had a dead tooth right here. And he told me that I should go to a biological dentist called Eric Davis Dental. It's on the Sunshine Coast.
I've been to him.
Told me,
actually,
you've been to him?
My kids do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I had never heard of a biological dentist before, like a holistic dentist. And when I went there, he explained to me it's amazing how all of your teeth are connected through your meridians to energy points. Bacteria, if you have root canals, if you have dead teeth, if you have filling, like all those things can be harboring bacteria that can travel from where your tooth is to where it's connected the rest, in the rest of your body. And so I had a dead tooth right over here. And he didn't even know where my cancer was. And he looks at it, he goes, okay, so your cancer is either in your right breast or your right lung. And I was like, oh, how did you know that? He's like, I've had thousands of patients, and anyone who ever has a disease or cancer or anything, it's exactly where their dead teeth are. Like, it's insane. And so I got that tooth removed, and there was like a massive bacterial infection like underneath it, like it was disgusting, but he got that all out, cleaned out. And then he suggested to me, that I start hyperbaric and that I go to a nutritionist. And so all these things just started happening for me. Meanwhile, the doctors are calling me daily, telling me that I need to do the surgery. They need to cut my breasts off, whatever. And my family at home, in the USA, they were okay with what I was doing. But, like my dad, he's never really dipped his toe into the holistic world. So he's like so concerned, like that I'm not doing what the doctors are saying. And other people that like hear my story, friends that are, not holistically minded, are like, are you crazy? So I'm getting a lot of discouragement, but I was just so confident that this is what I was supposed to do. And that the whole system, like, it's so much to talk about in one podcast, but I'm sure you guys know, like, just the fact that when my mom was sick, we had to go to Mexico to smuggle apricot seeds across the border. And like, that's when I the light went off in my head. Like, this is crazy. Like, the fact that we have to smuggle stuff that's like natural into America because they've banned it here because it cures cancer. It's just crazy, And they're all linked. Like, the more you look into it, the food and big pharma, and I'm a real believer that the system is rigged to keep us sick. And I just didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want to be I didn't want to just be another number, another paycheck. Like, I wanted to heal myself from the inside out, because I think that, I let the cancer grow and thrive. The things that I was doing in my life, my diet, my lifestyle, everything, like, I created an environment for the cancer to grow and thrive. And if I did what they said and just did the surgery and nothing changed in my body, I just think it would come back. What's to keep it from coming back? It grew the first time.
And
you know?
that's your experience. Like this is exactly what happened. You saw with your mother. Like,
Yes.
oh yeah, we've done the surgery, we've taken it out. It's all good now, and it wasn't. So like, it's interesting that you experienced that, but your father experienced that, and like your friends would have seen you experience that exact thing, and yet they're still encouraging you to do the same things that your mother did. Yeah.
Standard of care.
Yeah, which is like, but
And
that didn't, the result, the results are not the same. Like, we're trying something different because we want to see different results.
I think so often as well, it's so easy to just default to that, and never do we pause and look and take a breath, because fear at that point has completely crippled us when we hear something like the big C word. And just be like, okay, where am I at? Who have I become? And what has my role ultimately been in my own personal suffering and this disease? And going forward, what am I willing to do? What am I willing to change? Am I willing to turn my life upside down and really admit to all of the faults of my own? Because ultimately, like, you don't just get chosen to have cancer, or it's not just like
you got hit with the unlucky stick.
Yeah, you opened your mailbox one day and just received it. It's bad luck. It's like, no, you didn't. And that's, I'm sure, like that's not including some cancer and some of those things that, childhood cancer and things like that.
Yeah, but the thing is that we're still, and I think you've touched on this, Jaylee, is that we're still in like our environment is a toxic soup. And so while like childhood cancers, obviously like
no fault of the child's.
No, but they're still in an environment that is causing this. So
yeah,
like
100%.
You need to be looking at that. Like, okay, maybe they haven't played a part in creating that disease, but how can we alter the environment that they're in? Like, what are they experiencing that we can change up? That anyway, you know where I'm going with this.
The thing is that I think going holistic is the harder option. It's to completely change your entire life, to have to change to eating like 100% organic, no sugar, no grain, no gluten, no dairy, no fruit, no hunt. Like I was eating such a I was on keto paleo, and I really believe that that's a huge, like it was definitely one of the number one things that helped me get healthy, because it was restricting the glucose like we talked about earlier. But it's so hard. Like it's really, really hard. And the diet alone is hard. And then to change to being a completely non-tox household, that's also extremely difficult. You have to get all new products. You're trying to, like, it's your whole life changes. And I think that that's a lot harder than going the Western route, because although I think you get more sick and you deal with more of that in the Western route, you're
bypassing responsibility.
Core, isn't changing. And so to change your bad habits, to change your negative emotions, to remember that there is it's a full-time job. When I was in the thick of it in that year, I couldn't really do anything else. I was doing ice baths and detox baths, and I was on my hydrogen machine. I mean, the whole day was just filled up with focusing on getting better. And that's why I think some people don't maybe want to believe in holistic health, because they're not willing to make those changes. Possibly. I don't know. I mean, I think it's part of it
it's one of those situations where you choose your hard too, because that is really hard to do, all the changes that you've made, and to do it from a place where there isn't a big support team. Like you're making all these changes and you've got all this doubt coming your way, and you've got people thinking you're crazy, and you've got medical teams telling you that you're basically walking yourself into the ground. That is hard. But what is also hard is dying prematurely from a disease that, if it's come, it can go. So yeah, I mean, it's
that's what I believe. I believe if your body created the disease, your body can get rid of the disease. And I don't think I really want to change the narrative on the cancer bird. You hear cancer, you think death immediately. But I think it's just because we don't understand it fully. We don't understand that it's like, usually with most cancers, it's like, it's a metabolic disease. It's your body crying out for you to change your ways, you know, to stop with the toxins and the junk and just everything that you're surrounding yourself with is just draining the life out of your body, you know? And so, yeah, I it's kind of cool in a way. In a way, it's kind of cool that, not that this happened to me, but that, you know, I saw what my mom went through. And then for me to go through this, and I have like a real life story that I can share with people that's like, hey, like this really works. You know, you can really do it if you want to. Yeah. So anyway, I was doing all the natural stuff in Australia, lots of therapies, and it's hard to talk about them all right now with you guys, but like you said, I did write an ebook, or like, it's more of a PDF really, that like details everything that I did and all of that. But I was doing the natural therapies there. I did the full body MRI, and another lump was on my left side, on the left breast. I did a biopsy of that one, and it wasn't cancerous. So it was just a random lump. So I was like, okay, cool. We got one lump. That's it. But I was in so much pain that I really needed a surgery. Like, I couldn't lay on my stomach. I was sitting in my house, like with no shirt on, or when in public, I was like walking around like this, holding my shirt off my body. Mm-hmm. And there's no way in hell I was going to do that major surgery, because I feel like I am trying my best to build my body back up to its prime health, so that it knows that it can do what it needs to do to get rid of the cancer and be healthy. That major of a surgery is just it would accomplish the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do, like to put my body through that trauma, and then also to remove organs that are very important to the body, like women's breasts. I mean, with birth and with hormones and with you can't just remove organs, and then, you know, it's a really big stress on your body. And like I saw with my mom, they removed hers and it still came. So I didn't want to do that, but I really needed them to at least cut part of the tumor off that was like trying to push out of my skin, because I felt like any minute it was just going to break through my skin. Like, that's how much it was, like how much pressure there was. And they wouldn't do it. They told me, no, we're not at the Sunshine Coast University Hospital. They said, the only thing that we can offer you is that major surgery, like the double mastectomy, chest, take part of your back and graft it so you're not completely like handicapping your right arm. Yeah, wouldn't do it. And I was like, I started bawling my eyes out to this person who was being so rude to me, the head oncologist there, just making me feel like I'm stupid and that his time's being wasted, rolling his eyes. I'm sitting here like, this is my life. Like, this is my body and my life. And he's just like, well, you don't want to do the PET scan, so I don't know what to tell you. Like, no, if you try and do that, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. We're not gonna do that. And so I'm like bawling. Sorry.
Really quickly, there's probably a few people listening to this who are just like, I can't believe that would be your experience. But I've also gone through the cancer battle with my dad, and we had such similar responses from oncologists, hematologists. Like, they're all just like, well, if you're going to go and do vitamin C infusions, we can't help you. Like, what? We can't help you. Like, it's so wild.
It's strange because I'm like, wait, aren't you working for me? Like, I'm confused. Like, I pay tax and you get like, no, like, you are my doctor. Like, I am not your like experiment. Like, you need to listen to me. It's insane. Like, they think that they know your body and you're everything better than you. And at this point, they still don't even know what kind of cancer it is. So I'm like, you are making all these big decisions and you don't even know if this kind of cancer, you know, reacts to chemo or is fast spreading. Like, I'm not going to do those things anyway. But the fact that you're wanting me to go through with this major surgery and this crazy chemo, and then even this immunotherapy that basically 20% of people that go through it end up with another like chronic, terrible disease. And you don't even know the kind of cancer, like it's mind boggling. And I, in this meeting that I had one-on-one, because it had been a couple months, it was like, I got diagnosed in April. It was July at this point. And I had been like, between April and July, cleaned up my diet, cleaned up my house, went totally non-tox, vitamin C, hyperbaric, hydrogen therapy with the AquaCure machine, which is amazing, by the way. I've been doing all these things and they think I've been doing nothing. So they keep saying, you're denying treatment. You're not doing treatment. And I keep saying, I am doing treatment. Like I am doing a ton of treatment. Like stop saying that I'm not denying treatment. I'm not denying treatment. But what they're meaning is denying their treatment, you know, what they're pushing on me. So in this meeting that I finally had with them, because we just kept having a really bad communication, I asked them just like a few questions because I wanted to see what their answers were. And I asked them, does diet like affect the outcome of cancer at all? And they said no. I was like, the only thing they said was, well, no, it doesn't affect cancer. Maybe if you have a certain kind of cancer, don't eat too much meat or something weird like that. But I was like,
I'm just trying hard not to interrupt. Insane.
Ooh, Sabah.
Like I was like, okay, the nurse told me that when I first got diagnosed, the nurse goes, go get yourself a big tub of ice cream. Like you just, I was like, I'm never eating sugar again. Like, I don't know about the rest of these people, but like, you know, so it's insane. So I asked them that and they said no. And then I asked them, okay, you're saying that my cancer, they don't know exactly what kind it was, but it's not on the breast organ. It's in the breast tissue. So I'm like, you're saying it's a soft tissue cancer. Why would the cancer care if the breast organ is taken off? It wants the soft, it can go anywhere in your body. It's soft tissue. And they just like couldn't answer me. Like I had all these questions that were like, I thought that were fair questions and they just either couldn't answer or were rolling their eyes. I asked them about vitamin C. I said, what do you think about the intravenous vitamin C? I said, doesn't work, won't work. I said, isn't it like a natural chemotherapeutic? They laughed like, no. You know, they have these like, they make you feel stupid. And so I was like, okay, I need to be transferred to a different hospital. You know, in Australia, it's hard because it's public medicine. And so you kind of get like assigned to like a hospital and you can't, like, if you want, you can't really, like here it's different in America under insurance because you get like a private doctor that you see all the time. But in Australia, I was struggling because I was just seeing different people all the time. And it was all crazy. But I told this oncologist, me and you cannot work together anymore. Transfer me to the city. I need to go to the city. I'm going to find someone there who's going to cut this top part of my tumor out. I can't do it anymore. Like it's terrible pain all day, every day. And so they were, you know, they were happy, I think, to get rid of me. Like such a problematic patient. They were just like, okay, fine. Yep, you're transferred. And just like, I was like, okay, bye. And so I did this doctor called Dr. Lisa Crichton. She is a private surgeon. I saw her just so that she would be able to write a letter or a recommendation to the hospital in Brisbane to someone she knew there to do the surgery. So when I saw her and I explained my situation, I said, they don't know what kind of cancer it is, but they want to do A, B, and C. She did her own scan and she said, I do not know why. There's no reason why they shouldn't just be able to take the tumor out. Like there's no reason. So I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I have been fighting with these doctors for 4 months. I'm like, I've been fighting with them for 4 months to just try and please take even some of the tumor out. And they're like, no, you have to do this big surgery. So a surgeon in Brisbane ended up agreeing to do it. He said, we're most likely not going to be able to get it all because my tumor, it was like a tree, like growing in the soft tissue. Like it wasn't just like a solid mass. It was like all in there. So I did surgery and you know, a lot of people try and tell me that you didn't heal holistically because you did surgery. but I think that's like kind of silly because the surgery that I did, they took part of the tumor out. So the part that was almost intruding to the skin, and then they had to take some of my skin off too because the cancer had grown into my skin. So they took part of the tumor out. They scraped some of the skin that was by the tumor. And when I woke up, I was still dreary. The first thing they said to me was, we didn't get it all. You're going to have to do more major surgery. Like you're going to, if you want the cancer to come out, you're going to have to take your whole breast off. But I was like, oh no, I'm not worried about the cancer coming out. I just want to be not in pain every day, you know? And so after that, I continued all my stuff. I was feeling really good. I was on my supplements. I was still doing all of the treatments that I talked about. And they did another scan and it still only showed just in the right breast. And so I was like, okay, like it's been 5 months at this point and there's been no spread. Like that's pretty good for them telling me that it was going to be, you know, the doctors, it's going to be spread in weeks. You have weeks until it's spread. But a week after my surgery, I was back in the hospital. I had a terrible post-op infection. And I was in the hospital, back in the Sunshine Coast Hospital. I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't happening. I'm back at the Sunshine Coast Hospital. That's where the emergency, you know, took me. And they put me on antibiotics, which was such a bummer. I was like, no, I worked so hard to get my gut health like so good. I'm like, I don't want to be on antibiotics, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. So they put me on antibiotics and I wasn't getting better for 2 days. It was getting worse. There was blood pouring out there was a hole like where the tumor was, blood pouring out, random stuff pouring out. Sorry, this is gross for anybody listening, but like, that's the truth. And, you know, you can tell you're not getting better. And on antibiotics, you're supposed to see like improvement in the first 24 hours. And so I'm telling the nurse, I need to see the doctor. In walks that same doctor before. And I was like, I'm like, how are you the doctor on this wing too? Like you're an oncologist. Like, why are you over here? Like when I saw his face, I was like, no. He comes in all, you know, like it's almost like he's happy to see that I'm like in a bad position. And he says to me, you're not going to get better unless we're going to offer you the mastectomy right now. Have a mastectomy, your cancer and your infection will be taken care of. He goes, it's the cancer cells that are causing you to have this problem. Like the infection will not go away with antibiotics. You need to take your breast off. And like, this guy's so obsessed with my boobs, right? Like, what is wrong with you?
Is your kink removing women's breasts?
Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with you?
I'm kind of starting to think like you personally just like want to take it home with you or something. Like you're pressing it so hard when this is clearly an infection. It was just so insane. And so then they're sitting there telling me, you know, if you don't do this, this infection can get to the point where it's going to become sepsis. You can die. Like you need to do the mastectomy. And I was just like, I have not come this far, changed my whole lifestyle, so set on natural healing, feel so good, no cancer spread, just to do your stupid big surgery. I'm not doing it. So I called Ryan's Rule on their ass. You guys know what Ryan's Rule is?
No. Do you know what this is?
I've heard of multiple.
Tell me, what is it?
So Queensland has this rule because a little boy named Ryan died in one of their hospitals while he was in the hospital from an infection that the hospital wasn't taking seriously. And his mom was like, he is dying, and they didn't take it seriously. So now they have a like nonprofit government thing called Ryan's Rule, that if you feel you're being neglected at the hospital, you can call them and they'll come down and make sure everything's on the up and up. So because I have been in the hospital now for 3-4 days, I'm getting worse. I'm starting to have fevers. I'm like, I'm going to die in this hospital if they don't change my antibiotic. I knew my antibiotics needed to be changed. I was like, I know infection when I see one, and this is just a surgery infection. Like this antibiotic needs to be changed. I asked the doctor, he said, we're not going to change your antibiotic. This is the one you tested for. You need to do the mastectomy. And I was like, no. So I called Ryan's Rule and I said, this doctor has a personal vendetta against me. He's not changing my antibiotic. I'm going to die in this hospital, like without my family here, like if you don't do something. So they come down and of course, they're all like, okay, here's a private room. They let my partner stay with me. They got me all situated, all nice. And then like, okay, we're going to talk to the doctor. We're going to figure things out. And so how long had it been? I was in a hospital total for a week, and I missed I've been planning my best friend's bachelorette weekend for like 6 months. And of course they're keeping me in this stupid hospital wanting to get a mastectomy, and I missed it. That was another such annoying thing. Anyway, so Ryan's rule comes down. They put me in the private room and everything. That night, the doctor comes in and says, okay, we're going to change your antibiotic. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah, change it. Changes it. I'm not kidding. Next morning, I look down. Nothing's coming out anymore. The reddening has gone down. Like the antibiotics worked that fast. And I'm just like, this doctor, like I almost was like, should I sue them? Like, this is insane. Like this doctor, I was in this hospital for a week, sick, needing help. And they wanted to get that mastectomy and start me on chemo and all that. So anyway, after that, I decided that I needed to go home to the USA because I was just over the Australian, and I'm sure, I mean, they're terrible here too, but I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to go home to be near my family in case anything like that. Being in the hospital kind of freaked me out. Like that experience was like freaky for me, where I'm like, I'm here. These doctors, these Western doctors are refusing to help me in the way that I know I need to be helped. They're serving me the craziest food, like this white bread, and they don't give you butter. No, they give you canola spread. And like, it's insane in there. And I asked them, I go, excuse me, like, I'm so sorry. I'm just wondering, like, why do you give your sick patients that are in the hospital food that's literally just dead carbs, sugar, and like artificial like stuff? And he said, oh, our nutritionist says that sick people need more sugar because it gives them energy. And I was just like, Isaac, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here, man. Like, this is like a moot. Like, oh my God, no, like I can't do it. So anyway, continuing on all my stuff. And I decided to go to a healing center here in the USA, back where I live in California, called the Cancer Center for Healing, where I could continue all my treatments in one place, which is kind of nice because I was doing vitamin C here and then driving over to hyperbaric and then driving out, a million different places where I can find. Difficult to find in Australia, places that allow you to do that kind of stuff. So I came back. This was August, the end of August, beginning of September. I came back to the USA, and I went to the Cancer Center for Healing, and they're known as 100% natural. Like, they've got all the stuff and more. It's amazing, honestly. If you have a lot of money, like, it's amazing. And I did a lot of stuff there for a while, but then it's kind of a hard thing because Western medicine, I feel like, is just a money grab. But there's some places on the other side that's also a money grab. And I don't want to say bad things about this place because the nurses and the doctors were so great, but I will tell anyone who's listening who's thinking of doing natural healing, like, be wary of these natural centers. They're in it for the money. Like, a lot of them, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it, but just be careful with your money. Know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. Make your own schedule, don't let them rope you into all this foo-foo stuff that you don't need. Anyway.
Yeah. Like, look, there's on that side, there's always going to be snake oil salesmen as well. Like, there's, taking advantage of a dire situation. But on the other, if you do your own research and you do it well, you can generally avoid that.
Yeah, I would just say to just know what you want. Because again, someone telling you all the things to do, and you need to be the captain of your own healing journey and know what you need. So I was there, and they have an oncologist at the center too, because they do low dose chemo there. And so I saw their oncologist there, and he was like, you have to start, like, it's like, I we push natural healing here, but like your cancer is so bad. Like you have to start chemo. Like you're not gonna, he's like, even with it, I think you'll maybe last 5 years. And hopefully in that 5 years, something will come out that can help your cancer. So I was, even from the natural healing center, I was just getting this doom and gloom, bad news. And I found out they did a lot of testing there, that my tumor mutational burden, so a normal tumor mutational burden for someone who's like stage 4, like a bad cancer, is like 32 to 34. Mine was 172. So they were like, we've never, ever seen this. Like we've never seen something this crazy. Like we can't scientifically, like, how is it possible that it's contained to just your breast in like 7 months that you've had this disease? So I was just like, okay, like doom and gloom. And I had another big scan coming up in November, a full body scan, and then a Signatera test, which is a really advanced test where they take part of your tumor and they compare it to your blood to see if there's anything like floating around. And it's kind of a way they keep an eye on things. And so I continued treatment there. I started to see somebody who does muscle testing for supplements, and she was amazing. She was the first doctor who was like, no, you're going to be fine. You're going to be great. You can heal. She was just joy, and just, she would sing, and she would just randomly like, come on, we're going to do some hula. And like, she was just this like amazing, joyful, such a smart lady. But she was like, every time I went in there, she just spoke life and like blessing and joy over me. And she was amazing. And she does like muscle testing and like energy testing for supplements. So I started taking like 60 supplements. Like I took a crazy amount of supplements per day for a while there. And I started to feel really, really good. I was doing such high dose vitamin C that I was like violently throwing up while I was doing it. Like I had to, as it was going into me, I'm throwing up into a bag because it's got to have the cytotoxic effect. And so they're like, all right, well, that's a sign that it's working. So I'm doing all these things. I've trusted, and I've like every day told myself, I'm getting healthy. I am walking down, like I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to live a long life, and I'm going to try. Like I'm just throwing my whole mind into like, I will not die. Like I am not going to die. And even further than that, like it is not going further than the breast. Like that's where it ends. And so I feel like I'm like bouncing around, but the mind is so powerful. Like if I can tell a cancer patient one thing, is to like, your mind, man, like just to be positive and to speak life over yourself and to just believe. Like you have to believe that you're going to be healed. Like you have to. You got to push the doubt and the fear out and just tell yourself over and over again, no matter how many times it takes, to say it out loud. Like I will be healed. I am healing. Because I think the mind is very, very, very powerful. And so, yeah, it's doing all that work, going through all of those life changes. And my scan was coming up in November. I went to see, my dad wanted me to go see this sarcoma specialist. He's like the best in the country. And I knew what he was going to say. I'm like, this is a Western sarcoma specialist. Like, he's not going to tell me anything different. But because I was in Australia the whole time, my dad had never heard it for himself. He'd never been in a doctor's office with me. So we went together to Santa Monica to see the specialist. And he said to me, like, my dad is a witness. This is crazy. People think that I'm lying when I say this stuff. But he said to me, if you don't start chemo right now, you may as well jump face first off a 10-story building. That's what he said to me. This on-call, this best specialist in the country. Yeah, that's what he said to me. And I just like look at my dad like, you know, I told you that all they're going to say, like, that's all they know. They know surgery, chemo, radiation. Yes.
So you're in these doctors' offices. Are you like, do you have the same kind of vibrance that you are giving us right now? Like when you're in there, are you of the same energy and vibrance as what we're seeing right now?
At first, I wasn't. The first few times I was like,
holy shit.
But then after a while, I was like, Like I would just like shake my head like, oh, okay, yeah.
But it's like,
And
I'm not here
like,
dying in front of you. Like I can hold a conversation where like I'm breathing, I'm living, like I'm here making decisions over my own body. So to say that I may as well go and jump off a 10-story building right now seems a little extreme, because like surely there's a process where like you know, if I was dying, like this is just where my head goes anyway, but it's like if I'm dying and it's so dire, the situation is so dire, I'd have more than just a sore boob. Like I'd like there'd be more.
Your brain would be like switching off, or you'd be like fumbling. Like I would imagine that there'd be more signs.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that's what I was thinking the whole time, because I felt generally fine the whole time. Every time a doctor would be like, you're dying, you know, I'm like,
I'm not.
I don't feel like I'm dying, you know, I'm like, I don't really, like, is this what it feels like to be dying? Because, you know, I feel pretty good. Like, I feel fine. So, yeah, it scared my dad. Yeah. He was on the car at home. He was like, are you sure you shouldn't just try it? What if we just try everything, you know? The doctor at the healing center said that like things together, you know, if you intermix them. And I was like, Dad, like, and I just went through all the things with him. I was like, Dad, think about it. Like, that's all he knows. That's all he knows. I'm like, they have 0 studies on my cancer, on how chemo affect. He's just saying that. He just wants his paycheck. And then anyway, so my dad was like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like, I trust you, and like in your instinct, in your gut. And so, my scan was coming up in November, and the oncologist at the Cancer Center for Healing, he said, you know, I really want you to start the low-dose chemo. And I said, okay, but my scan's coming up in 2 weeks. What if the scan comes back completely clear? And he said, okay, like that would be a 1 in about 90,000 chance that your scan would just come up clear.
Okay, guys, we are interrupting this episode today for a quick little game of which phase of your cycle are you in? Because she is going to guess what phase of the cycle I'm in.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell her if she's right or wrong.
Well, Chloe, you're looking absolutely glowing. So I would only assume that you're in your ovulatory phase.
Wrong. I'm in my follicular phase, which usually I'm not looking so glowy. But I have to say, my religious In Bloom skincare routine every morning just pumps me up. Like I give a little massage, put a little Kakadu plum on. I'm actually addicted to hydrosol. So I swear to God, it can elevate you 100 times. So I love it. Can't live without it.
This is basically all I use on my face at the moment. It is so beautiful. And this is my skincare routine before filming one of these podcasts. So I love it. I'm so excited to be offering all our viewers 15% off when you use the Road to Wisdom at checkout. We will link and put our code in the show notes.
Like, in my professional opinion, I think when that scan comes back, it's going to be spread all over. He's like, if I know anything, looking at this paper, looking at your results, it will, like, I want to prepare you that it is going to be spread and it's going to be bad. And I was like, you know what, doctor? I think I'm going to be the 1 in 90,000. Like, you said there's one, right? So you're saying there's a chance, right? Like, I'm like, I'm going to be that one. And I did not feel scared. I was like, that's me. Like all day, I'm like, I'm the one. And so going into the scan, I was just like speaking life over myself, reading out my favorite Bible verses, praying the whole time, like in that scan. And I felt so good. I felt so confident. And my dad went with me to get the results. And I was like on the verge of like, I'm like, okay, like I was shaking, you know, because it's a really big deal. And yeah, the doctor comes in and he was like, it's completely clear. And I just started bawling my eyes out. Like when he said those words to me, I felt like a weight was like lifted off me, and I just like let like everything come out, and I was bawling, and I was like, what do you mean? I was like completely clear everywhere, like not even in the breast. It's like, it's not in the breast at all. It's nowhere. You have 0 sign of cancer anywhere. And I was just like, I knew it. You know what I mean? I was like, I freaking knew it. Like, I knew natural healing was like real and like I could do it and my body could do it and that God was going to heal me. Like all the things that like I innately knew, I was like, yes, this is confirmation. And so, yeah, I took those papers to those doctors and I was like, told you. Yeah, they were like shocked. They were so shocked. I honestly thought they were gonna be like happy, but they were like, all right, we need to run some blood like they didn't trust the scan, of course. Yeah, so they, it's fine, it's their job, but they wanted to do more tests and they're like, all right, we need to do a Signatera test. We need to do, I'm blanking on the name, but it's some sort of like it's just cancer markers and like all of that. Because they kind of thought that like they just didn't believe it. They're like, there's no way. Like it's how can it be possible when you had a tumor mutational burden of 172, the highest they'd ever seen in like it. I think I could probably be in Guinness World Records because it's the highest they've ever seen at the City of Hope, which is here in America. It's like the biggest cancer hospital. And in Australia, like they've never seen it before. So they were like, it's not possible. So they ordered the Signatera. I did it in January of this year, and I did it again in April. And both times, it said none detected, nothing, no cancer anywhere, nowhere in your blood, nowhere in your tissue. Think about it. They had this full body scans from November. That didn't convince them. And then they had a Signatera test and all those tests in January. That didn't convince them. And then they had it again in April. And then finally they were like, okay, I guess your cancer, like, I guess you're in remission. And I'm like, it took you long enough to like admit that, like, yes. And yeah, so ever since then, it was crazy because I was diagnosed April 12th, 2023. And the day that I went to the hospital and they finally put my papers that I was in remission was April 13th, 2024. So it was like 1 year and 1 day later.
Oh my God.
Which is
and that
crazy.
Was also the birthday of my daughter. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. So
we were in labor while you were getting that.
April 13th.
Yeah. Wild.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's just crazy. Yeah.
I mean, it's so wild, right? Because a lot of people, like, there's just so many, I guess from the perspective is that, my perspective is that what I see is so many people just have the inability, whether you're a doctor, an oncologist, a professional, or a person who has a diagnosis, like it's almost impossible to expand your perspective enough to be like, let's see here, or like, what could this be? Like, there is infinite possibility out there. And we see it time and time again, whether it's like being told you can't have a baby and then, pregnant, or like you given the worst of the worst type of diagnosis, and people get through it. And it blows my mind that people in those white coats cannot stop and just be like, okay, this has happened before. Let's like not be assholes. Like, let's not roll our eyes at this person in front of us. Let's just open a couple of pathways up and like admit that we only know as much as we know. And there's so much more possibility out there, obviously, because of these stories. You're not the first person and you won't be the last person. And then for the person carrying it with them, like you, to be like, I don't know, like that conviction to continue to walk back in those offices and be told, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're an idiot, is super badass, by the way. But like, we need that, and people need to hold on to that because yeah, I mean, you know, there's a reason why it's like, you know, these foundations, you know, have been pouring, donational monies for tens and tens of years into this research. But it's almost like as if they're on purposely looking here when they could be looking there to get these answers. It does seem a little scammy.
Little conspiratorial.
Yeah, I mean,
but even as far, like, I think what you're requesting is like a whole system change, which just
paradigm blow up. Probably never going to happen.
Just like blow that shit up. But like, at the very minimal, can we not recognize that we have our bodies? We can choose how we're going to treat them. And if you think that that's going to like walk me into my grave, well, fine, that's fine. But it's my decision in the end. Like, this is my body, this is my life, and it's my decision. And for medical staff to not be able to support that and not get out of their own I won't swear because a lot of our listeners don't like swearing, but to get out of their own egos, like just and be like, actually, I'm here to serve you. Like that as a medical professional, like that, you're there to serve the person, to help them get better, not to convince them to do everything your way, but to give them the options, and then they make the decisions for themselves, because that's what bodily autonomy is. And just like, I feel like that tiny little jewel in and of itself, like how have we not even got there yet?
Well, imagine being an oncologist and Jaylee comes in and is like, I'm not going to do that. And the oncologist genuinely believes you're probably going to die in like 4 weeks, thinking, okay, I've got a 26-year-old girl in front of me who has 4 weeks of life left. I'm going to give her
my professional opinion,
but I'm also going to be like,
the decision.
This poor girl's going to die soon. Let's not make her life any worse.
But that's
like, do you know what I mean? Like, if he genuinely believes the advice he's giving, like, you know, and given the fact that most people don't survive cancer, like, it's either way. Like, this person's in a really hard time.
But that's the thing.
Let's not tell her to jump off a 10-story building.
Yeah.
I mean, far out.
But that's my other thing. Like, if he is, he believes that, then like how much evidence has he got for 26-year like young women who have come through and he saved them?
Yeah.
Like, how many of them have survived his procedures?
Young women has he?
That's
saved?
the thing.
It's like,
that's the thing. They say that chemo is like 97% failure rate, like in the long term. And so it's like, and they won't even, it's oncologists, their medical schools are linked to big pharma. Everything is like this.
Interwebs,
big pharma is what funds all the medical schools, all the books, everything that they learn. So that's all they learn. They don't learn anything else. So in their heads, I think they went to school for 8 years and they learned all this stuff and they're the professional, but unfortunately they never learned about true health. They never learned about nutrition. They never learned about the effects of, toxins over long periods of time. They never learned about how the emotional is connected, the nervous system. They didn't learn that stuff. All they learned was sickness. Let's just slap a Band-Aid on it. That's all they learn. And so I feel like they're afraid, or like they get pride. I don't know, but like it's just because they genuinely don't know. And I think it's sad. Like, they are also, it's the system. It's not them. I feel like they go to school because they want to help and whatever. Maybe some of them want money, but they like want to be doctors, but they don't get taught health. Like, and we used to have, not that long ago, we used to have homeopathic hospitals everywhere in the States, and they were amazing and they worked really well. Rockefeller got rid of all of them. Like, if you look at that history about how he shut them all down, but he kept his own homeopathic team, of course, because it works. It's all just follow the money. It's all about the money. And so whether or not doctors are actually, I don't think the doctors that I saw were evil. Like you said, I think they genuinely thought I would die and was trying to convince me. But the problem is that, like, it's funny when I say I knew better than them, because they didn't know, they didn't learn. I had been learning all of this stuff. And so to say that I know better than a doctor, yeah, I know better than a Western doctor about real health, because everything they learn is not real health, in my opinion. They're great. They're great for certain things, emergencies, broken bone, all that stuff. And they're needed for that stuff. But when it comes to chronic diseases, everyday ailments, like things that you deal with as a woman with your hormones, they don't know anything.
No.
They just want to give you medicine to pop all day long. They don't understand how to fix it, know?
And I think that's evident. Like, the evidence is in the fact that as a population, we've had more medical help and we've got all of the technologies available and we've never been sicker. in the history of time. So, and this conversation, man, we could take it to some really
so
deep,
many
dark
places.
corners there.
Yeah.
But we are running out of time, Jaylee.
Sorry, I blabbered on. I'm like,
No,
I've
it's
never
perfect.
been. It's like,
So
what?
good. No,
The
but
story's so big and has so much depth and like different things to it that like I just,
absolutely, absolutely. Well, if anyone wanted to contact you, follow you, find you, or get your information or ebook, where can they do that?
Through my Instagram, I think.
Okay.
I have the link there for like my ebook, for my naturopath, like all the different things, helpful things.
We'll just link that.
And yeah, you can link my Instagram. I share about some stuff there, and so that would be the best way to follow along with my story or read my story or whatever.
It's been so inspiring, and hopefully no one out there is going through this or has recently discovered this about themselves, but if they have, I'm sure this information will be absolutely priceless. And
one in two getting a cancer diagnosis these days.
I want to tell anyone who is listening who did just get a diagnosis that like you have time. That's like my message. I want to say you have time, you have options. Do not let them scare you. Like that is their end game. They are trying to scare you into doing things. Just don't listen to them. You have options. You have time. Do what you know is right for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, love. You've been a mega inspiration.
Yeah, and what an exceptional story and an exceptional person. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing. It's been really amazing.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been great.
Amazing.
Like I've never even listened to a podcast before, so I'm excited like about podcasts.
Well, can you start listening to ours, please?
Yeah, start listening to
exactly.
ours. We've got lots of information.
Subscribe, share, rate us.
Yes. Oh, and for everyone else listening, subscribe, share, rate. It's always very helpful. Anyway, Jaylee, thank you again. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Road to Wisdom podcast. To join the journey, you can follow us on Instagram at theroadtowisdom.podcast and at www.theroadtowisdompodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We look forward to seeing you next week with more juicy content.